Well, welcome everybody. I'm Paula Barthelemy. I'm delighted you've joined me. I'm glad that we could join you. We had a internet connection interruption here for a few minutes, but we're back, we're live, and moving forward. So we're going to have a presentation all about alumni here, and we're going to talk with Tracey Fox. Tracey graduated from Hawthorn's Nutrition Consultant Training Program back in 2011. She graduated Summa Cum Laude. And I asked Tracey to talk with us about all she's been doing post-graduation with holistic nutrition in a clinical setting. And in this webinar, Tracey's going to demonstrate how she's been able to work her passion while making a living in holistic nutrition in North Carolina, which is one of the most restrictive states in the country for healthcare freedoms. Aligning with open-minded, integrative, and gifted doctors has not only allowed Tracey to do the work that she loves, but to design nutrition and lifestyle protocols for some really extraordinary and critical cases that holistic nutrition rarely gets to impact. So this is some exciting work that she's been able to do. I'm glad to bring her on. Hello, Tracey. Welcome. So glad that you're here together.
Hi, Paula. Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. So I'm going to introduce you briefly, but not too much, because you're going to weave just a great story as we move forward. So just a little bit here about Tracey Whitestone Fox's journey into holistic health began as a patient of functional medicine pioneer Dr. Mark Hyman, as well as a nutritionist, Kathy Swift. And from that life-altering encounter, Tracey experienced some really optimal health and balance that sent her on a journey to learn as much as she could about the effect of food and that lifestyle have on the body. So Tracey enrolled in Hawthorn's Nutrition Consultant Training Program and graduated top of her class. Starting then and continuing on, Tracey believes that the foundation of good health comes from eating real foods. It's based on a person's biochemical individuality. And whole foods and stress reduction and lifestyle management, Tracey feels, are the foundations of optimal health. She has appeared on many local Charlotte television and radio shows, as well as print media, and enjoys exercise in all forms, particularly yoga, meditation, cooking, inventing recipes, reading, hiking, and exploring the farmers markets. So thank you for that, Tracey. Really my pleasure to introduce you, and I'm so glad you're here. Really to be able to talk with you and learn more about what you've been doing post-graduation.
Good. Well, thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
You bet. It's easy to talk about you. So I think why don't you start by telling us how you got where you are today, giving this presentation, and what kind of led up to it?
Sure, I'd love to. This has been a very cathartic process. You know, if you haven't looked at your life and kind of written a timeline, I suggest everybody does it because it really puts things into perspective, and it's been a really great process. So thank you for letting me do this. So yeah, my story into how I became a holistic nutritionist and how I figured out how to work legally in North Carolina, not the easiest thing to do. So, and what I've learned and where I'm going from here. So making lemonade out of lemons in North Carolina, you know, finding that silver lining. So I wanted to start at the beginning because it's really helped me become who I am, and the work helped me with the work that I do. And growing up, I had to bridge two worlds. My parents were divorced when I was 2, and I grew up in Santa Cruz, California and Butler, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you can get more polar opposite than that. But it helped me understand a broad range of people, and it's also helped me find connection with most people. Very diverse background, and so when I see people in clinic, I feel like, you know, there's always something I can connect to people from all walks of life. I had a very traditional father, a doctor father, who was a family physician, and a very holistic mother. Now, they lived on separate coasts, don't forget. So, but they gave me a real understanding of 2 different schools of thought, which has helped me much with my career as well. So I understood traditional medicine, but also holistic approaches. And my mother was into some very open-minded things that really helped me to have an open mind and see things in a different way. But I also understood from my father where sometimes medicine is important and necessary, and that's good too at, you know, some junctures. but they both helped me honor my instincts. My father was almost medically intuitive, and he really helped me sort of tap into that. And from that, I also now in my career help people listen to their intuition, because it has a lot to tell them about their own health journeys. They were both into nutrition, and through my mother, I learned a lot about yoga, meditation, and mind body, which also helped me very much today. But I understand and really respect both their points of view.
It's really beautiful, Tracey, that so young you had these very divergent but complementary influences. Really.
Thank you. Thank you. I think so too. I didn't understand how it all fit together because it didn't look like it did, but it's become who I am, and
Right.
It makes sense. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Before I started at Hawthorn, I was always looking for my purpose, and I went to San Jose State. I got a commercial interior design degree. I got married, had 3 kids. I was always studying nutrition, reading every book I could. It was always a secondary interest of mine. I loved cooking and creating and working out. But what was my purpose? My purpose didn't become clear. Now, motherhood is a great purpose, but my purpose in the world didn't become clear until I started learning about this man, Dr. Mark Hyman. I had been at a yoga, and it was a Kripalu studio, and if you don't know what Kripalu is, it's a great yoga retreat center in Lenox, Mass. And I read an article that he wrote in the back of this magazine, and it was a case study on this man who had multiple forms of inflammation, IBS, alopecia, allergies, asthma, and how he'd been to all these different doctors. But then he came to Hyman, and Hyman, being a functional medicine practitioner, got to the root of the problem, that it was inflammation. And so after I read that article, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go see this man. I had no idea he was a best-selling author. I think this was, 10, 12 years ago. And he had Ultra Prevention was out, but now I think has 10 bestsellers. And I was in Massachusetts at the time. He was in Lenox, so it was an hour away. So I became a patient of his. And there was nothing wrong with me. And so I'm sitting in front of him, and he's looking at me saying, why are you here? There's nothing wrong with you. And I was saying, well, I'm a wellness dork. I'm sorry. But it was a great relationship, and everything got better for me. I slept better. Joints didn't hurt. I was in my early 40s at the time. I thought, well, your joints are just supposed to hurt when you get older. Well, no. My brain worked better. How I reacted when my children misbehaved was more appropriate. My hormones regulated. Everything changed, and it was, what he did for me was he took me off gluten, he took me off dairy, he talked to me about leaky gut, all the stuff that we do. But it blew my mind, and you don't know how good you can feel until you feel good. That's a Dr. Hymanism. And so driving home from that first appointment, I knew this was it. I was like, this stuff is so basic and simple and real, and why aren't we doing it? Why isn't everybody doing it? And I just wanted to scream it from the rooftops. So from that, I worked a lot with his nutritionist, Kathy Swift, who's amazing. She's now at Kripalu, the yoga retreat center I was telling you about. And I worked with her a lot. He's very expensive. So I ended up working with Kathy more than I did Dr. Hyman. But like I said, everything changed for me. My health just got optimal. And so much so that I just wanted to change my profession from corporate interior design to nutrition. So I went to Kathy's office and I said, Kathy, where do I go? What do? I want to be you. And she said, easy. You go to Hawthorn University and I'll write your letter of recommendation. What's really interesting about this to me now is, if you notice, there's an RD behind Kathy's name, registered dietitian. She didn't send me to registered dietitian school. And if she said to go there, I would have gone. I didn't look at any other schools. She told me to go to Hawthorn. I went to Hawthorn, and I'm so glad that I did. So she wrote my letter of recommendation, and then she hand delivered it to Liz Lipsky, who was I believe she was in charge of the doctoral department then at Hawthorn. So that just felt like a path opened up for me, and everything fell into place. So Liz became a great mentor and friend. And if you haven't read Digestive Wellness, please do. And she has amazing webinars and talks and all sorts of resources just at our disposal. I'm addicted to them. So I started at Hawthorn, and we at the time would have retreats, southeastern retreats at Liz's house. Here's Liz. I don't know if you can see my little pointer there. And this was at her house. And we would have these retreats at her house, and it'd be great food and lovely conversation. It was so lovely to be able to come together as a group like that. I've stayed at Liz's house 3 times, and I've always slept in the library, and I got no sleep because her books were all around me and Townsend newsletters, and I couldn't sleep because I had to like dig into all the books. And she would stay up too with us late and tell us stories and teach us how to muscle test, and it was just so amazing. And that's the Hawthorn group on the top picture at the NANP conference in San Francisco. So, and Dr. Hedberg, I wanted to tell you about him. He's an adjunct professor at Hawthorn as well. I met him through these retreats, and I did my internship with him, which was so nice and such a great experience for me. What we would do, he was in Asheville and I was in Charlotte, and he would send me patients and give me their protocol, and then I would call them. So it was just a great experience for me, and I did that for about a year with him. All right, so
I love this. You're framing the journey. You're starting off with Dr. Hyman and him saying, "Why are you here? There's nothing wrong with you," but the end result was that you greatly improved. And
I did.
I love the quote: "Is you don't know how good you feel until you feel it," and so to see that improvement, and I think that's true for a lot of people today, that we just go through life feeling what we do and don't recognize sometimes that we're out of sorts or that we could feel better.
Right.
So just a beautiful journey. So how did you get from that to start working with physicians?
So, when I came, I moved to, so the beautiful thing about going to Hawthorn is you can study anywhere. And so if you move, if there's a life crisis, like my stepmother was dying of kidney cancer. So I moved home to Santa Cruz, California. And so, but I started with Dr. Hedberg, working with physicians. So I even started in school. But I moved home to take care of her while she died, and I I called Rebecca Katz, and I've never met Rebecca, but I love her. I love her personality. I love her lectures, her cookbooks, and I wrote her and I said, "Listen, I'm taking care of this person with cancer. Do you have any resources for me?" She gave me many resources, and she also hooked me up with Grandma Dave, the chef, pictured here. He's in Santa Cruz, and he really focuses on cancer, eating through cancer, and all of that. So I worked with him, and I also needed a thesis topic. When I was there, but I was also studying and seeing Hedberg's patients at the same time. And through that experience, my thesis research came about, and that was healthy meal replacement drinks. Because in my stepmother's garage were Boost and Ensure and all these drinks that she wanted me to give her, and I'd flip them over and read the ingredients, and I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, no. So that's when I developed, and I used 6 months of that time to really dig into my thesis and try my concoctions at hospice and at her chemotherapy clinic and all of that. So when I came, she did die, and I moved back to North Carolina, and right at the same time I was graduating. And as luck or no luck would have it, the healthcare laws in North Carolina changed, GS 90. And that's, just to put it simply, it states that only MDs or registered dietitians can talk one-on-one nutrition with somebody in the state because everybody else can't get licensed. That's naturopaths, that's chiropractors, that's you name it, anybody else but an MD. And we know MDs usually don't have a lot of training in nutrition, maybe just a couple hours. Mm-hmm. So here I am graduating, and what am I going to do? So I first set out to do a website, and you really get started on that at school. Hawthorn's great about giving you the tools you're going to need to start your career. So I really was going down the website, blog, e-commerce route, and I have a niece who's a internet marketing genius, and we were setting me up kind of like the Food Babe and the Healthy Home Economist because I knew that they had a good business model and were making some dough. So I started that, and I started teaching classes around town for free. But then I was getting divorced, and I had 3 kids to support with no help from their dad. So here I am getting divorced, no support, in a state where my profession is illegal. So, but luckily I didn't let that stop me. A friend told me about an amazing doctor that she thought I would align beautifully with, Dr. Sheila Nitrogen, and we did. I went and met Sheila. We hit it off. I started teaching classes at her. She's right here. I started teaching classes at her office in the evenings, and she wanted to get me into her practice to work with her patients. Mm-hmm. So she went to bat for me with her lawyers for about 9 months with the North Carolina Medical Board to figure out how I could work legally in her office and how I could take insurance. And they tell me that I'm the first holistic nutritionist in the state to be able to take insurance, or I was back then. They also told me that I was the first graduate from Hawthorn in North Carolina. I'm not sure if that's true either, but those are things that I've heard. So Sheila and I still work together. It's been 4 or 5 years. I'm in her clinic every week. I was there yesterday. She's a physical medicine doctor, so she sees a lot of cerebral palsy, fibromyalgia, amputees, pain management, things like that. And we also do wellness packages together. But she is an angel to me and just the most amazing doctor. From her, I met the gentleman behind the computer. That's Dr. Jean-Renel Corbier. He is a neurologist who practices nutritional neurology. So I also worked with him for about 3 years. And the way we work together is I was in clinic with him for every patient. So that you would see us together. And he sees some really tough cases. It's not unlikely at all that somebody will be already from Duke or Mayo Clinic or Johns Hopkins and come to see him because he's kind of the last stitch, hope for a lot of people. And some of the hard cases I've seen there, a lot of mitochondrial disease in pediatrics, extreme autism, Zellwinger's disease, PANDAS, pediatric autoimmune disorder associated with strep, a lot of genetic disorders, a lot of MTHFR, seizure disorders, brain injury, addictions of all sorts, strokes, mental retardation, prescription drug toxicity. We see that a lot.
I bet.
A lot. Verbal apraxia, Lyme disease, tic disorders, you name it. Girls that hiccup too much. We had one of those one day. So with a neurologist, you just never know. But learned so much from this man. He's just brilliant. And the most important thing my doctors have taught me is do what you do. Don't worry about the diagnosis. We'll take care of that. You do what you do. And, down to my Hawthorn roots, it's always look at the biochemical individuality, break it down into the systems of the body. Bring the body back into balance. Look at gut function, inflammation, detoxification pathways, nutrient intake, and then lifestyle and stress management. I mean, right there out of the Hawthorn curriculum, and I really stick to those things still today. You know, I always have Ayurveda in my mind and a little Chinese medicine and a little instinct in there because my father was very, well, both my parents did teach me to really trust my instincts. So that's in there as well.
Lovely.
Thank you. The story I love to tell is this little girl right here in the stroller. And that was we put together a mitochondrial pediatric clinic for these kids because it's usually terminal. And a lot of kids die from pediatric mitochondrial disease. Mm-hmm. So this is us at a walk. That's why we're dressed all silly. But this is a beautiful post from this little girl's caretaker. And I like to tell the story because it really emphasizes the Tracey, do what you do. Her parents called us and they were in a panic because she was dying. And they said, I hear you have this mitochondrial clinic that you're putting together. And it was a combination of the two doctors here, Dr. Natrajan, Dr. Corbier, holistic nutritionist, me. We had a PT, physical therapist. We also had a RN who had lost a child to mitochondrial disease. And we had an integrative pharmacist. So here we are, this panel, and then the patients would come in and we would work together. It was a team, amazing. So before we saw this little girl, and I knew she was critical, I went to my doctors and said, there's nothing I can add here. This girl's dying. I think I need to step out of this one. There's nothing I can do. And they said, no, Tracey, we need you there. Do what you do. So I went to this clinic, and it was our first one, and I did just that. What was missing was this girl's nutrients. She was G-tube fed, so the tube went right into her stomach. It bypasses the mouth and the esophagus. But she was G-tube fed formula, and it was the same formula day in and day out. Mm-hmm. She was throwing up. She couldn't keep anything down. She was just wasting away. So I came up with my protocol was to do a whole foods blended diet, but do it very slow, very gentle, so her little system could handle it. And my doctors gave me the okay, thumbs up, yes, let's do it. And that was the only thing that we really offered that day because she had done everything else. So at this walk was about 8 months later. Her mother came up to me to introduce me to her grandmother, and she said, this is the miracle. Tracey is the miracle behind her recovery, her little girl's recovery. And I wasn't going to take credit for all of that, but I wanted to tell the story because what we do is so important. And in the medical world, when you are working with doctors, it's so easy for the basics to be missed. So with this, then I went back to the lovely part was I could double back to my thesis research and bring that all up when I made that protocol for this little girl. And if there's anything I'm known for in my little world here is that the blended diets. You know, we're always trying to get kids off feeding tubes or not on them at all. But when we do see somebody on a feeding tube, that's the first thing I do is change up the diet and get them off those prefab formulas. So,
Tracey, I'm tearing. It's a powerful story, but are you saying that in 8 months on a whole foods blended diet that she improved?
She improved greatly. She still has mito. But she's now in school. She's now out of her wheelchair. She's walking. She's talking. In fact, yesterday I was in Dr. Natrajan's clinic, and the same mom brought her son in to see me, different issue. Mm-hmm. And she said it again to me. She said, Tracey, he was dying. Mm-hmm. And this is the interesting thing. She's an RD. Mm-hmm. She's a registered dietitian. She hasn't worked in a long time, but that she swears by, that's what saved her daughter. Now, everything else did as well, but she really She really, and I see miracles like that all the time in these clinics where I am. And
So blended diets, your off feeding tube, they're able to ingest orally, to take food in.
so, say that again, I'm sorry.
So if she was on a direct tube into her gastric section,
Hmm.
you got her to the place where she could eat normally,
Yes,
right?
yes. So we built up her strength. We kept the G tube in, and we built up her strength. And I think she probably still does have her G tube, but she eats by mouth now as well.
Okay.
So that whole process isn't atrophying. And she's, you know, as we know, there's a reason, you know, you chew and all the processes the food needs to go through. So, but I think they give her a bolus at night, and but she eats. And I follow her still because I follow her Facebook page, and so I can see, you know, what she's eating, and they're really great about sharing her story. But yes, it was real food getting into her that made the big difference.
Again and again, over and over with people. So a
Yes.
couple of things I want to give you the opportunity to question about if you're able to take insurance for the services that you're doing independently or within the clinics, and how do you deal with calling people patients or clients in these kind of situations?
Two great questions. So when I'm working with a doctor, when I'm in a doctor's office, they're patients. When there's somebody on my own, I'm not a holistic nutritionist. I'm a holistic health educator. Think about that. So it's more of a coaching role.
Mhm.
And for that, I don't take insurance. Um, for Dr. Nitrogen's patients, it's insurance based, and we take insurance. And it's because she figured it out how to do it. And part of that is that, you know, she closes out all my notes, and we're constantly collaborating.
Mhm.
So that's how that's done. The neurologist, Dr. Corbier, he is cash pay. So we do not take insurance in that office. This pediatric mitochondrial clinic that we were starting with the 6 practitioners,
Mhm.
we have not done anything with it in a couple years because we couldn't figure out how to make it sustainable financially. And that is really tragic. Um, you know,
I
there were
hope you
some
will.
ways. I hope we will too, because it's, you know, hard to pay 6 people,
Yes.
um, and not make it astronomical for these poor parents who are already buried in debt because of their, you know, their health crisis of their children. So I do hope, because it's pretty magic.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
so
I hear some grant writing coming into your picture, and fascinating story. We've got a few minutes left in this presentation. So why don't we talk about what else you spent your time doing since graduation, if you're okay with that?
Sure, sure. So one of the things I do is a holistic reboot. I do it with a yoga meditation Ayurvedic teacher. It's a 5-week detox. We do it about twice a year. That's a fun, very successful program we've got going on. I help to start a wellness center. That's me with my 2 doctors. That's Dr. Shaw and Dr. Corbier. And Swami G, they're giving us Tulsi for a blessing for our new space. So that's fun and exciting. And I got to use my old commercial interior design background for that as well. Um, at Integral Wellness Center, I started Nourish. It's an integrated day of healthcare solutions. I wanted to bring out um, all the kind of the underground wellness practitioners in the area out into the open, because we are kind of all underground, and just let the public know we're here, and that event is going on again this year. Luckily, I am not running it because I'm not an event person. I'm a nutritionist with a lot of big ideas. So that is taking over. People are doing that.
Yeah,
But
great idea though.
thank you. So things that have really kind of taken a back seat while I've been building all these other things for other people's practices as my own brand. And I'm going to be getting back to branding myself. I'm in a transition right now where I'm going to do more of that. And so my this is my website. It's sad. It's a glorified cookbook. This is my booking site, which I'm doing more and more with, so I can do more online coaching. My Facebook fan page, all the stuff I set up when I first graduated, thinking that would be the route I went. But when I didn't, it kind of all suffered. I do keep in my LinkedIn page pretty well up to date. I find that it's a great resource. I get job offers. I get a lot of interest in writing gigs, things like that from it. So that's great. And I've learned so much during my years at Hawthorn and my years after Hawthorn. One thing I want to tell people is no matter what state you live in, whatever laws there are, you can work around them. And the beautiful thing for me is I found myself in situations, in clinics where I never thought holistic nutrition would ever have a voice. And so I took this law and I put myself in clinical settings, and it's been such an amazing gift. So I'm so completely thankful for that and all that I've learned from my doctors and, everybody that I've gotten to sit in front of and witness their journeys and their trials and tribulations and their tears and all of it. So it's been amazing. And another thing I want to say about working with doctors is that even though a doctor is brilliant, sometimes they're not great business people. So right. You have to really protect yourself. You have to figure out what contracts you need in place. You got to figure out if you're going to be a full-time employee or an independent contractor and how that looks. So really take that into account. But doctors need you. They really need you, because when you couple with a doctor, it's, like I said before, it's magic that can happen, because the collaboration is so beautiful. They can take you further, and they need what you have. So, and it just goes to benefit the patient so much. So really, really great. Another thing I wanted to just leave with people that I've learned was to try everything you learn on yourself. It really helps to make it tangible, practical, and relatable, because you can tell people 100 things to do, but if you don't tell them how to do it, it's just going to be very overwhelming. And the last thing someone that's sick needs is more stress in their life.
Right.
So, really, really important. But what we do has the capacity to change lives, and I really want people to get that message. So for me, the journey continues. I still have my docs that I collaborate with. I'm talking to 2 more right now about how we can best work together. I'm still teaching classes. I am teaching one tonight on the body's wisdom. I'm trying to get my online coaching business up and running. I'm getting married next month. I still love to cook and innovate in the kitchen and make sweets healthy. Those are at the bottom, my homemade almond joys that I always say I'd put up my healthy treats up against any school lunch in the country for protein, fiber, good fat, and micronutrients. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to continue on my path. I don't know where the next incarnation will come from, but I'm just very willing to listen and wait and take the journey.
Fabulous. And you've moved recently. You've relocated, so you're establishing yourself in a new community, right?
I am because I'm getting married. I moved in June, just about 40 minutes away, so I can still make it into Charlotte for different clinics that I'm in, but I am trying to do more online and things like that.
Well, it's a beautiful journey. I love the continuation and the openness and the ability to be curious without knowing and excited about what may come, and just keep continuing to put yourself out there in really strong and powerful ways.
Thank you. I just have a knowing that this is the right way to go. And so I've never, as I was doing this, putting this together, when I got divorced and, was a newly graduate, I thought to myself, geez, why didn't I, get a job at Nordstrom or go back to interior design? I was so focused that this was my journey. that nothing else, I couldn't see. I had blinders on, and I'm so glad that I did.
Blinders for a reason. It's your calling. It's very clear that it's your calling, and you were very infused with that from birth with the parents that you had. So
Yes, yes, I really was. I'm so, so grateful. And I'm so grateful for Hawthorn because it's just not the best holistic nutrition education in the country by far, but just the way that you all have you align us with wellness resources and teach us how to start a business, and the webinars. The webinars, when I have something to research, it's the first place that I go to see, if what I'm researching is being talked about. So I'm sort of addicted to them still. I never missed one when I was in school, and now I'm always on the archive looking through the webinars. But I just want to leave with people that, don't let anything or anybody tell you that what you're doing isn't valid or it's not important. It really is. I see miracles all the time. What you do can change lives. And that's why I still get excited every day about this. And I thank you, Hawthorn, because you started me on this journey. Thank you so much.
it's our pleasure, and really a pleasure to witness what you're doing with your education. It's powerful, the journey that you're on. So, are you ready for some questions?
Yes, I am.
All right, there's a couple here.
Okay.
All right. Do you run labs for your clients that when you see them as holistic health educator?
And not usually. If it's a more complex case, I'll bring them through Nitrogen's office usually, and we'll go that route, because then I feel like they're just getting a much more comprehensive overview from both of us. If I didn't have her in my corner, then I probably would be, because we did learn a lot about labs in school, and I do have accounts. But I find if I do need to do that, if it's not, just an easy sort of wellness, overview or checkup, then yes, I will run labs, but through Nitrogen's office.
Okay. And this is a great question. Suggestions that you might have of the best way to approach doctors about working with them.
That is a good question. First of all, I would find out about doctors in your area that are open-minded. That just because a lot of them just don't even get what you do. So start there, and then start doing things for free. Maybe it's a handout on protein, whatever they need to help their patients, and just help them understand how you can be of value, be of service to them. Like I said, I taught classes at Trojan's office for 9 months, and I've done many, many, many free clinics with both of my docs, when they've needed me. So don't be afraid to, do things for free and just get your name out there.
Yes, I concur. You're not gonna nothing's gonna happen unless you put yourself out there. And so, one of the things when you're in your business class at Hawthorn is to explore other healthcare practitioners. Everybody in business, but healthcare practitioners that you can refer to, and who could refer to you, and who you could collaborate with and work with. And so at first identifying those people, and then having the courage, being brave enough to approach them and let them know what you do, because I think what you've said most importantly through this whole thing is the work that we do isn't done by anybody else but us.
Right.
Very few. I mean, we've got the functional medicine practitioners, yes, but who's practicing holistic nutrition is coming out of doors like these, and it's critical, and it's becoming more and more essential in the work that's done in the health field. So,
right. Even the functional medicine practitioners that I know need a nutritionist, because there's a lot of hand-holding that needs to go on.
it's true.
And that's where we can be in the field. And that's my schedule is loosening up a bit, so I can go to people's homes. I can, give them more of a concierge service, if you will, and cooking and things like that. And I'm pretty excited about that.
Beautiful. Well, it appears to me, but I want to ask, do you feel that you achieved your goal, getting your certification at Hawthorn?
Yes.
Do you think we supported you well enough in getting in these efforts, in this endeavor, Tracey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And you align me with so many, like the holistic nutrition world's pretty small, really. And I know most of the movers and shakers in the holistic nutrition world, and that's because of Hawthorn.
Right. All right. Well, I'm very impressed with you from the time that you've been in school and where you've taken this. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today, Tracey. I'm inspired. I imagine a few other people are as well. So keep studying, keep doing what you do. We've got big work to do here, people. Like I said, this was inspiring. So please help spread the word about our next All About Alumni. These are just great stories to hear from and to thrive with. So our next meeting is Wednesday, October 5th at 12 noon Pacific time. I'll be here. I hope you'll join me. And until then, I wish you all the best of health and take good care.